Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm very happy to be joined by Max Trebatowski, who is an advisor for the School of Business and Economics. Thanks for joining me, Max.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So, Max, you want to introduce a little bit about yourself, what you do at UWSP currently?
Sure. So I am an academic advisor in the School of Business and Economics. My primary role is working with students on academic selection each semester to pick classes for upcoming semesters. We do a lot more than just that. We do graduation planning, and I work with all of our instructors and our faculty advisors, and I oversee the program in general in the School of Business and Economics. So actually, I don't have a teaching role on campus. I work primarily and only in advising.
Cool. Well, I know I specifically reached out to you because in your email out to students about advising, you mentioned you had an incredible experience abroad. So, you want to tell us when you went abroad and where you went?
Yes, absolutely. So the program that I went on when I was in school was in between my junior and senior year. It was the summer program to China. We went to Beijing, and then we primarily lived in Tianjin for about 4 weeks. And in between those weeks, we also took a trip to Shanghai as well.
So, out of all the places you could have chosen to go, why did you choose that program?
That's a really good question, Hoffman. And primarily, I chose the China program because China was incredibly foreign to me. I knew that I wanted to experience a new culture. So the China program was about a month long. And it also financial costs were a concern to me as well. And so those are the two primary reasons.
Very cool. And you talked a little bit about the culture briefly there. You want to explain some of the differences you found while you were over there, like between Chinese culture and American culture?
Yeah, that's another really good question. So the the biggest thing that I found when I was over there, well, I guess I'll back up for a second. So I got credit for doing an internship when I went to China, and so me and two other people worked for a company that sold vehicles in China,
Mm,
and we primarily worked for their international sales area. So
okay.
they sold cars to places like Egypt and other countries in Africa.
Yeah.
It was more so like a cultural immersion trip. And so we got to do a lot with just, I guess, kind of sitting around in an office setting, seeing how the different business cultures of China and America uh, clashed and how there were similarities. Um, there definitely were more, I guess, cultural differences than I expected. They still were a very, I guess, elder society where, depending
Okay.
on what someone told you to do as an elder, you were expected to listen to them.
Hmm.
The biggest thing that came up with us was our professor, our trip leader was an economics professor, and he would make suggestions to the student ambassadors that were working with us to make sure that we had a good experience outside of our work. Um, and so our our Chinese student ambassadors took every suggestion that he offered as a this is what we have to do rather than this is a suggestion. So
Okay.
sometimes in the Chinese culture, if you say the words "I think" or "maybe we should do this," it gets taken as this is what we have to do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that intern experience was incredibly valuable to you. I mean, China is one of the other major powers in the business world besides the US. So what can you say about that as a resume builder? Did any future employers like mention that or think of that as a positive that you were over in China for a month?
Yeah. So it came up in pretty much every single one of my uh, experiences in interviews after I completed the program.
Hmm.
Not so much as a this is going to be what's going to get you the job, Max, but more so as a I see you studied abroad. Can you tell me more about that?
Hmm. Awesome. Um, so what was your favorite experience you had while you were over there? It could be business related, could be something fun or a trip you did.
Yeah. So we took a trip to when we were in Tianjin. We took a trip to a local mountain. It's called Mount Panshan, I believe it was the name, and we hiked up. I don't know, maybe halfway up the mountain. And it was a really cool experience because everybody that was on the trip decided that they were in and they wanted to go.
Nice.
So we were with all of the different American students that I traveled with, but then all of our ambassadors that we were there with as well. So it was just a really cool cultural immersion trip. Each time we got to like a little plateau, we'd stop and we'd take some pictures and everything. And it was one of those, I don't know, I have a picture from that particular trip where we all kind of did like a funny pose. And I see that all the time. And that's like one of the pivotal points in the trip that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I know people, when they see these trips, they see it's for credit and stuff and business. And they might be thinking it'd be more work than it is fun, but it sounds like you got to do a lot of other cool experiences too, right? There's a lot of trips in the country.
Yeah, definitely. One of the really cool parts about tying in the credits with the trip is in most of the internship experiences that we have, students have to keep a journal of what they do on a trip. And I was able to review some of my journal notes earlier before our call, and it brought up a lot of memories of that trip. And so I'm really happy that I had that.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, that's got to be cool. My dad always does that on his trips he goes on. He keeps a journal too.
Mhm.
Did you get to try any interesting Chinese food? Was there any fun cuisine or something that you really, really liked that you didn't expect while you were there?
Yeah. So we had Peking duck, which is like finely shaved duck in
Hmm.
like a rice tortilla almost, and it has a unique like duck sauce that goes on it. And so that was a really cool experience. We had that in Beijing. I think it's native to the Beijing area. Um, I learned all about the lazy Susan style of eating. That it's very, very family sized portions that you get, and you spin the lazy Susan to grab what you want.
Hmm.
And so our first week in Beijing, I don't think anybody was hungry anytime afterwards because we always got so much food.
Nice. Initially, when you were first going over there, were you nervous? How did you get over that? Because I mean, it's kind of a big task to go over from what you're used to here in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, all the way over to Beijing, China.
Right, right. Yeah. It's I remember doing research into the different cities that we were going to be in. And the numbers are a little bit different now because it's been almost 10 years since I've been over there. But every city that we were in had 8 to 12 to 15 million people
Hmm.
living in that area or that metropolis. And planning for the trip was mostly exciting. I don't think the nerves actually started to hit until we actually got on the plane and we started to head over. I mean, for, from Chicago to Beijing
Hmm.
is what, like a 12 or 14-hour plane ride, something like that.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
um, it doesn't really, you have a little time to really let it sink in. But then once you get over there and you step off the plane, it's like, okay, well, we're in an entire different place right now.
Yeah, awesome. I never hit a flight that long. My flight I went from Chicago to New York and then New York to England in Manchester,
Okay,
and that flight was only 6 hours, so I didn't
sure,
have as
sure.
long of one as you did.
Hmm.
But yeah, I remember getting on the plane and seeing British stewardesses, and I was like, wow, this is actually happening. I'm hearing their voices. I'm hearing people returning from trips. But yeah, definitely a cool experience, I'm sure. So before I ask my last question, do you have
Yeah.
anything else you'd like to comment about the China trip or any other things you want to highlight?
So the one thing I would add is I get to talk with students every semester who are in that decision-making process of, do I want to study abroad? Do I not want to study abroad? And
Hmm.
I remember specifically something my mom told me when I was making that decision to go. travel when you're young because you're unbound to things like work, where you get so many days off a year, and
Yep.
family, and it's always harder to go when as you get older. And I would say that's something that still rings true. I see it now. I've got a wife and a small child, and it gets a lot harder to go places internationally when you have a small family. So, and if you want to see the world, there are a lot of different places you can go.
Hmm.
China is just a place that really interested me. I still think the Chinese culture, the thousands and thousands of years of traditions that they have, is just wild and crazy. And I got to see some of those places, the Temple of Heaven, the Great Wall of China, some of
Yeah.
those really cool places that have been around for hundreds of thousands or hundreds and possibly thousands of years. It doesn't really matter what you want to do or where you want to go. But I think that if you want to go somewhere, you can find something to get out of your comfort zone, and then you just have to do it.
Yeah. No, that's incredible advice. And I just talking with my family throughout my life, like during high school, even their biggest regret was not studying abroad. And every single family member that did study abroad just talks about how much they loved it and how it was incredible. And exactly what you pointed out. I mean, there's no better time to travel when you're young, don't have all these responsibilities yet. And
Mhm.
even if you do get the chance to travel when you're older, there's if you choose to go for a semester or a full month, like it's incredibly difficult to plan that when you're out of college. There's hardly any experience where you get the cost effectiveness and the time frame to be able to be in
Yeah.
another country for 1 to 4 months.
Right, right. And there's a sense of security that comes along with traveling in a group and traveling with people on campus that have planned these events before. There's so many different things that can happen when you're on your own with you by yourself or with a friend. This just adds a level of, I guess, in my opinion, a little bit of security when you're going halfway across the world to a new place.
No, absolutely. And then when I found in my program too is when I got there, there's all these other students in the same situation, and I just meet so many other people, and there's just group security and like friends instantly because they're all
Yep.
international students in the same situation you are.
Yeah, yeah, that shared experience is something that you can create a bond over incredibly fast with the people, especially when you're at a place where there's other people from other parts of the country studying or traveling in that same vicinity. You make friends really quickly.
Well, I mean, you kind of already answered my last question. It was going to be any advice for students considering studying abroad. So you already talked about some of the stuff. Just do it. But is there any other advice you might have?
You find a lot of free time when you go on these trips. I mean, even if you're taking 3 or 4 or 5 classes, there's still a lot of free time that
Yep.
you get to explore. I guess the biggest piece of advice that I would give students is if you are traveling abroad for a semester or a summer, um, don't overload yourself with credits, because part of the abroad trip is actually getting out and seeing the landscapes, seeing the different parts and experiencing the culture and talking with the locals and mingling with the people there. And I think that sometimes academics can overshadow that a little bit. So don't take off academically more than you can handle, so you can actually get out and you can experience the culture.
Hmm. And I think the international office does a good job of helping you balance that so you'll be set to go. They have experience with that for sure.
Awesome.
All right. Well, that's all I had. Thank you for joining me again. It was great to hear about your experience.
Yeah, my pleasure, Hawken. Thank you.